Well, let's start with the numbers. We know that in 2016, the number of visitors to Bath was 5.7 million. We know that in the last year, 2017, for which we don't yet have formal numbers, the number will be something north of 6 million. And that's because the exchange rate has made it much easier and much more economic for people to come to the UK, and Bath is clearly on their list of places to see. And just anecdotally, walking around Bath, you could ask anybody who lives here, they'd say there's more people here than there have been previously. So that'll be something over 6 million visitors to Bath. And one of the key questions that flows from that has got to be, is this number of people actually beginning to damage the very thing that people want to come and see, which is the immediate area, the public realm, the beautiful streets, which are not able to be kept up to tremendous standard because of the difficulties of the council budget and the difficulty they have in actually justifying putting money into the public realm. And yet if we don't do that, the numbers won't be 6 million, they'll start to diminish over time. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because we know that tourism is the biggest contributor to our economy. If it's not the biggest, it's got to be the second biggest, because it employs a significant number of people. More than 10,000 people work in the heritage industry in Bath.
You're being careful there, but I think you're right in saying it is our biggest industry, and because of that, surely as a revenue stream, it should be encouraged.
Well, I think that what we should be thinking about are the types of visitors that we get. What we need really to make a sustainable tourism opportunity out of Bath is people that stay overnight. And we know that, to use a modern term, the cultural tourist stays overnight. They come to a World Heritage City to see all of the fabulous architecture, to see the countryside setting, and to participate in the Roman baths and all sorts of other aspects of our World Heritage City. But to do that, you need to stay overnight. You know, there are 13 museums in Bath, each one of them offering fantastic different aspects of our history. And to do that, you need to stay overnight. And if you can get more people to stay overnight, then we are really beginning to sing.
We're up against it this morning. Emery's, of course, have started up the machinery inside the Abbey, and now the Bain street cleaners doing the rounds, but we'll persevere. Now look, you recently addressed a heritage conference and put forward ways that you thought tourism could be better managed and marketed. Could you maybe share some of those thoughts with us?
I'd be delighted to do that, but could I give you one more set of numbers first, because they're really easy to understand. If you compare the number of visitors to Bath compared to the number of residents, and then do the same exercise for another big city, which is a big tourist attraction like Amsterdam, you see that in Amsterdam it's 1 resident to 15 visitors. In Bath, on those 5.7 million a year numbers, it's 1 to 89. So there are 89 visitors tramping around our streets, wearing out our public realm for every single resident of Bath. And that's a scary number. So one of the things we have to think about is how we can better capitalise on that. Now, one of the ways would be what's been called a tourist tax, but you could call it a bedroom levy, you could call it a heritage levy. And you know that if you travel the world, wherever you go, you'll end up paying $1 a night, $2 a night, €2 a night for every bedroom that you stay in. Now, in the UK, there is no law which says that can be made mandatory, but we know that it's operating effectively in the Norfolk Broads and in the Lake District, for instance. Now just imagine if we were able to charge a voluntary levy to look after the heritage of our city of £1 per bedroom per night, and in 2016 there were 760,000 nights spent in Bath. 760,000 would be £760,000. And if only 50% of the people, if only half the people actually contributed, we'd still be making £350,000, which would pay for all manner of things like all our paving, for example, all our road surfaces, And wouldn't that make it a better place for people to come?
I'm never going to do an interview here at 9:30 in the morning. Of course, they're shoring up York Street, so we've got a drill joining in as well. Now, look, World Heritage is what you're all about. We have World Heritage status. We share the distinction with Venice of being the only two European cities to be covered by this status. Are we exploiting that enough?
No, I don't think we are. I don't think, if you look at the way in which Bath is marketed, and it's very easy for me to be critical because I'm not actually doing the marketing, but I am trying to see it from the point of view of the World Heritage Advisory Board and also of the punter, the people that come here, the visitors. They need to know all the great things that there are available in Bath. And I'm delighted to see that, for example, the Visit Bath have started to use a World Heritage City as part of their logo, which is tremendous. Also, of course, you've got the local authority heritage team doing some great things like getting their staff to wear a World Heritage badge showing the UNESCO symbol. We've even got the council thinking laterally and putting the World Heritage logo onto their doormats. Now, I know that sounds very strange because it means people will be wiping their feet on the doormat, but when they're doing that, they're seeing the World Heritage logo. And we don't see enough of that around Bath, so the more the merrier that we get that symbol out and about, because it is a symbol that's recognised around the world, whether you're at Machu Picchu, whether you're at the Taj Mahal, whether you're at the Great Barrier Reef. That's all about World Heritage.
May I, while you're here, just ask your opinion about Airbnbs? We were talking about encouraging people to stay long term. Well, Airbnb is doing that, but of course hotels and guest houses are unhappy about losing so much trade to the opposition. Baines are holding a scrutiny panel next Tuesday to listen to people's opinions about it and discuss whether or not they can restrict it in any way. What's your feelings about that?
Well, I think the key is to create a level playing field. For many, many years, hotels and B&Bs have had to go through a lot of regulations for fire regulations, electrical safety, gas safety, and a whole manner of other regulations which don't apply to B&B, to Airbnb. And on that basis, it's a lot easier for the Airbnb owners to charge less. Similarly, there's a big difference, I think, between somebody who has an extra room in their house that they wish to let for an Airbnb purpose, rather than somebody that owns a whole house, which the whole place is let for Airbnb. And they have no regulations imposed upon them at all, which seems to me to be risking a problem of fire safety, for example. And there are all other things too that link to that, like the party houses. We know, for example, that in Upper Town Bath, that is sort of north of George Street, there are 68 party houses. That's 68 buildings that are not occupied during the week. They're occupied just generally at the weekends, with anything up to 20 people staying in them. 20 people in one house without any regulations, no fire safety, no fire doors, all sorts of other issues, which mean, again, they're not on a level playing field. And the underlying problem there is actually more serious in terms of Bath's community. If you take 68 houses out of Bath's community, that means there are 68 houses that aren't occupied during the week. They're not occupied by people like you and me. They're just empty, which causes a hollowed out effect in the centre of Bath, which is known internationally now as the donut effect, which is easy to understand, a ring donut with a hole right in the middle. And it's the same thing that's happening in cities like York and Stratford and Warwick, and internationally in cities like Barcelona, for example, and Florence. And internationally, governments are taking this by the scruff of the neck and saying this is not acceptable. If you want to let accommodation in short-term lets like this, you must have planning consent, you must pay business rates, and you must certainly have all the necessary regulation that goes with it. And on Tuesday at the scrutiny day, I'm really hopeful that this will come across. One further thing that's worth mentioning is that our council leader, Tim Warren, has managed to persuade the Secretary of State to send down one of his key advisors to Bath during the week following, and there have been meetings set up by Councillor Warren to help to get the government to understand how important regulation of short lets is going to be for a city like Bath, which is a small city after all. You know, we only have around 60,000 residents plus the students. Students don't pay council tax. That's not Bath's problem. It's Bath's problem, but it's not Bath's making. It's a government thing, been in place for many years. So you only actually have 60,000 people really paying council tax. It's a small city, a very small city. Much as we love it, much as we love to walk across it from one side to the other, it's still a small city. And indeed, I could walk across it in the time that the council's man in his little van has been driving round us. So it doesn't take very long. It's a lovely small city.